Welcome everyone, Dr. Thor here. Get ready for Gnosis. Well, let's talk about subtle energy physics again, and what is the nature of the universe? Well, certainly this nature is even stronger on planet Earth, or so it appears. But the nature of all reality is entropic in nature, entropy. What is entropy? Well, this is generally, I'm going to give you the classical understanding of it. Now, this is generally a thermodynamic term in the science of that things basically go from order to disorder or break down. So the lack of order or predictability, gradual decline into disorder. Now, those are offensive terms, but what it really means is to equate it to something that we all understand. Entropy would be the fact of you getting older. Now, you getting older in the time factor is not something that is measurable in time. Well, you're 50 years old now. Well, you're not older, you're 50 years entropic. You're breaking down, you're going from order into chaos, or you are aging, not to the point that, well, you're just 50. No, your body is dying. Well, that sucks. But this is the way apparently this universe is structured. So over time, you go from a particular structure of order into a structure of disorder, and you could call death as the ultimate disorder. Well, isn't that fascinating? And how nice that we have that to look forward to. So everything goes through this. It's a constant, gradual breaking down. If we were to look at things, rocks break down. In 10 billion years, a rock will turn into dust, while another rock will be forming someplace. So that'll be building. Some things will be breaking down. But we're mostly concerned with the fact of the human biosystem, which keeps breaking down. You don't get stronger, and you think that the more nutrients you take in, the smarter you are, that your body should last longer. Well, it doesn't, and there's really nothing you can do about it. This seems to be programmed into our consciousness, into our DNA, and so forth. Now, what advanced societies have done, some have transferred their consciousness into some sort of biocomputers, where you actually, your consciousness is in a computer. Now, we're working on this as well as basic humans, but, you know, information and consciousness, what you like, dislike, etc., is not really consciousness. Like, there's no such thing as artificial intelligence. It's just a computer program. But we do have to understand that this is a factor that we have to look at in the bigger picture, because it controls all of life and everything. So as things get older, processes are continually changing. Some of these are entropic in nature, or you could think it's entropic in nature, such as taking a gaseous ball and turning it into what we have today, or volcanoes turning into dirt. Now, you could say that those are very positive entropic activities, which they are. But it is a transmutation. It's taking one structure and making it into another. Now, we consider soil to be positive. But if you're a volcano rock who started out as a rock and now you're soil, well, you have broken down into that. Now, do you consider that as a positive step depending on where you're at? Now, when we look at species, whether it's any kind of biospecies, animals, plants, etc., they are all basically dying. They have a limited amount of time that they will be able to survive before they die. They go from high order into the ultimate disorder, which is the disintegration of them entirely. And you could say that with a human. You're born, you're popped out onto the dirt, and ultimately you turn back into dust or whatever if you were just left there. So once you die, your body then decays or tropifies to the point where it turns back into dust or goo or whatever. You will eventually turn into back into dirt, or not that you came from dirt, but you'll turn into nothing, even though it's interesting that bones, we have found, depending on the environment, can go back millions of years. which just shows you the possibilities of structures that are not bio in nature, which bones to a large extent aren't, particularly once they have the blood and nutrients taken out of them. It's a substance again, and how long they actually last. So the entropy towards actual human calcium bones is very slow, and this is dependent upon the environment they are stuck in, meaning the dirt they're in. So some people are very well preserved because of what's around them. Well, that's interesting that can happen as well, because it just shows you how certain things can be preserved from the outside in to a degree. But we do have to understand that everything is breaking down. And as such, that everything is breaking down, and that includes the less physical things as well. So when you produce a particular energy out there, no matter what it is, healing energies, financial energies, whatever it may be, these energies continually tend to break down. Let's say you start a company and that company is very prosperous and does well. Well, does it go on perpetually like that? Because it's successful now, is it successful 100 years from now? Well, in most cases it isn't. Most companies are bought and taken over, and new birth happens to them. So if a company buys an existing company that has built a brand name, well, they use new tools to keep that company going, new manufacturing processes. But these are products that were good to begin with, but you're improving upon them or doing other things with them. So this is all part of the understanding of how the environment works. So when you're actually trying to manifest something, you're manifesting it so when you put out energies, no matter what energies those are, whether that's a radionic projection or a psychic projection, a magical projection, the minute that it is going on there, we have a particular situation that it is already dissipating, meaning that the initial effects every second is decreasing. Now, this isn't a drop-off amount and decrease, a sharp decline. No, this is generally a slow decline, but it is declining. And when you're trying to build energy within this environment, you are having problems getting it out at the strength it needs to overcome blockages and other things. This is why we talk about preparing your environment so that there are no blockages. Using sacred items or images, otherwise known as our sacred altar cloths, to place your machines on, to do your rituals on, making sure the vibrations in your environment are positive. You get rid of your environment, you spray banishing. If you're going to do success rituals, you could spray some success energies in there using our sprays. You can burn incense. You can surround your body by taking bath salts that you sit in for a while. These are all ways of creating a stronger protection or a non-entropic environment for a period of time. Now, all of these things wear off. So the whole idea is they don't stay there. So if you burn incense, it'll stay for a period of time. If you use an altar cloth, well, you're creating a semi-permanent non-entropic state there. So that's why it's important to have those type of things, and why it's important to make sure every facet of your life is arranged around creating a non-entropic environment, an environment that doesn't break down. Now, you can become very detailed in this, dowsing your house. Well, where are you going to place your ritual and radionic equipment? You may think it's the most convenient place where you can set up a table or where you have space, but is that the best place? Well, it may not be. That may be a place that has high entropy, meaning a geopathic problem. For one reason or another. This could be from the earth. This could be caused by building structures, caused by electricity going through there. This could be caused by waves coming at you. So these are all the things that create entropic environments, and something you have to be careful of. They found that certain places do have really bad energies in it. This is something you need to look at where you sleep. Is that a good place to sleep? Can you move your bed around? Is facing one direction better than the other? Do you sleep better? We tend to do things as we think are best for convenience sakes, but may not be energetically. But we do have to understand everything that is started is now decaying and dying. It's as simple as that. Nothing lasts forever. Now, there are certain things that tend to last longer than others because of the fact of their construction and what they're made out of. And it's amazing to go around Europe in this day and age and see what was made by the Romans over 2,000 years ago are still standing and working, while modern structures have vaporized. So there is a lot of it depends on, we can see the pyramids as well, but that's because of what they're made out of. Remember, you're making it out of stone, which has a very low entropic nature. So stone breaks down, and it does break down, but at a very slow rate. So the life expectancy, and you could call this about everything. What's the life expectancy of granite? Well, that's millions of years is really what it comes down to, because granite's going to take a long time before it disappears. What's the entropic factor of a piece of paper? Well, days, weeks, a month or two. Well, it all depends on what it's exposed to and where it's at. But paper, when it has been made with acid, turns yellow and starts to decay. So there's an entropic factor to it. And that's why we have non-acidic paper, because it will last for hundreds of years. So everything is based on this entropic factor of everything. And the most important entropic factor is the actual understanding of the human biosystem. And we're working on anti-entropic design, systems, technologies, etc. All of these are what we're working on to extend the most important thing, which is your lifespan and a healthy lifespan. This is something that's being worked on many levels, but if you could restructure through subtle energy physics the energetic fields that are around things and keep those energetic fields coherent, non-entropic, meaning these fields don't break down, they stay at that same level, you theoretically are creating a long-term life expectancy, or to a certain extent, even immortality could be the ultimate reality to that. So that's pretty fascinating if you think about it. And of course, that's where energy goes to. I mean, energy creates physical matter, so everything goes from energy to matter. That's the way it goes, and that's the foundation of life. So what we do is we structure those energies so they don't break down. You know, this is one thing to do with the radionic rates. The radionic rates, why can't you get the same radionic rate for the same item? Even if it's one of those slow, non-entropic energy fields, as we just mentioned, granite or stone. It is entropic, but it's a very slow entropic. So it breaks down. So why can't we then get the same actual rate for the same items, even things that are kind of non-entropic? Well, everything is entropic. It's breaking down. It's just the level of how fast it's going. So when you start getting rates, you're working with the energy field. And the energy fields of everything, no matter its entropy, no matter whether it's tiny and slow or super fast, is always changing, and this technology is picking up these fields. So, and you're picking up the very slightest of all fields. These are really the tiniest of tiniest of tiniest, is what energy is. It's beyond subatomic. It's an energy. It's completely different. So it is constantly in flux, and when you're tuning that in with a radionic type tool, you're constantly picking up the flux of it. Now, items that are very similar and very low entropic, stones, crystals, all sorts of things like that are kind of been formed over millions of years, but you know, they're still forming, they're still changing, but they're changing at a very slow rate. Now, these things can generally, we can come up with the same type of numbers or rate for them, or at least they're very close. So, but, you know, depending on how good you are, you may pretty much get the subtle changes that have been there, which could appear to be a lot when you have 9 numbers that now are fairly to maybe completely different. Well, they really are different, because what a stone was 2 seconds ago is changed what it is now in a vibrational energy form. But regardless of the number, all the numbers are correct because it's based on that substance. So And there could be an unlimited number of demarcations or labeling of that structure that you appear to be the same, but is actually sitting in front of you, kind of vibrating and changing in front of your eyes at the subatomic and even lower level. At the energetic level, it's changing all the time. But there is a range of numbers that will declare that particular substance like that. Now, what's difficult is when you get into things that are very bioactive, which are changing to radical amounts every single second, or probably changes every tenth of a second, whatever. Changes all the time. But does that mean once you get a rate for that particular person, place, or thing, that is no longer has a value? Well, it's not true, because you still can come up with a universal code, which is what rates are. You could call them, as I use, cosmic codes. And that means galactically recognized as a vibrational entity. So you can pull a code, a cosmic code on gold, and this is good all over the universe. A cosmic code on yourself, good all over the universe. It's a general code that differentiates you from the rest of the universe. And that means everything in it. Your cosmic code is your particular ID, just as that would be for any other substance. So this is universally used. Now, if we're using a particular changeable aspect, well, then another code has to be gotten for you. So if you were to get your code to help your vibrational energies take care of a particular energy illness, well, we're going to have to pull a different code for that, which still will be specific for you. But there are general understandings. You could say, and to give some sort of a comparison, you could say, well, the color red. Well, what do you mean the color red? Well, they're all red, but there's Chinese red, there's fire engine red, so there's reds, and they have shades of them that are quite different. But red is still red. What would you call it if you had to call it something? You call it Chinese red? Well, no, you'd basically call something red if you want to define it better. So it's in the red spectrum, and that's what we need to understand. And there are such variants of red. But in general, when you see something red, you don't say, unless it's radically different, you just generally call it red. So that's how you know. And that's the reason the difficulties with getting radionic rates as well, because you're dealing with these subtle energy physics energies, the energies of creation. And these are kind of constantly moving. They're constantly moving, and they're constantly energetic, constantly spinning, turning, whatever it is. However you picture something that's in constant motion, which is constantly going back and forth with each other, so to speak, as the energy is constantly being exchanged within the cultons. They are not stagnant sitting there. They are constantly changing, waiting for new information to come in so that they can form an energy field, which then condenses itself into stronger and stronger matter. So this is where regular science completely goes overboard into the drink and down the sewer. Because what they're doing is they're studying the physical matter. So they'll look at something and say, well, here's the molecules, the electrons, whatever they want to break it down to. And they're looking at the physical matter of things. And the physical matter of things doesn't determine what's going to happen to it and what's happening to what's can happen to it. It's the energetic fields around it that decide what it looks like. So they're looking at the physical reality of it instead of the entropic energy fields that are surrounding it, breaking it down, changing it into something else. So we must understand that it's not just the breaking down of something, it's the changing of it into something different. That's part of the actual entropic reality. So when science doesn't understand this and doesn't look at the energy fields and how those are actually changing, and of course they're being forced to do that now, they miss the boat. They're not understanding what is happening. So But we have to understand that this is the reality of life. So the whole idea is that we want to try and maintain an energy field, whatever that may be, to keep a structure of something going, and that could be the structure of success. This having these money energies around you, having health energies around you, success energies around you, influence energies around you. These are things we want to sustain in the particular reality that we're in to get the benefits of it. Yet life is not like that. If you allow life to go on its normal course, then everything is breaking down at whatever particular rate that is. But when you're trying to obtain a rate from something, to get the actual number of it, to classify it, it's very important that you use something that can also access those energy fields and get them into whatever technology. That's also why anytime you pull a particular rate on something, that you use a laser going through it, so that when it goes into your machine, it's at a subtle energy physics energy field level, and it has been transferred into photons, which now you can pick up easier. But sustaining and making sure that things last in your life is what it's all about. And that goes for anything, no matter what it is. You want to sustain or make it last your lifetime. You want to sustain and make it last your financial energies around you. So whatever it is which we're constantly fighting against is entropy. We're getting older, your performance goes down, your muscles change. But there is an insidious and evil aspect to this, because it's not just something changing to another form, it's changing to an inferior form most of the time. But even if you were a rock and that you were once a rock and now you're dirt, well, isn't the rock really a superior form? It's whole, it's there. Now you're dirt, you're dust, the wind blows you everywhere, you're scattered, there's millions of particles of you. Isn't the rock a more defined, non-entropic or less entropic structure? Well, of course it is. So this is one of the problems which is set up and also brings in a lot of spiritual issues, is why are things breaking down into something that is worse? Even though it has a certain benefit to other realities. If we didn't have dirt and soil, well, we wouldn't have so many other things that survive off of that. Plant life, animal life, bacteria, funguses. So in certain aspects, you can say, well, nature that you live in, that you're the freak that was placed here, and we need to understand it, because we're not really part of nature at all. There's nothing natural about us, nothing about it whatsoever. So we are very foreign to this world, and if you don't think so, wait for a hot day and then go run in the sand and see how your feet handle that. Or go out on a cold, rainy night naked. Find out how that helps you. So the point is, we're not part of this. Everything we do, we have to have an artificial structure around us, whether it's shoes or clothing or someplace we sleep in. Animals don't do that, even though they do kind of make their own little nests, so to speak, to assist things. But it's an assist. It's not necessarily a necessity. And generally, these are for short periods of time. There may be a bird nest for a few months to take care of the young'uns, but after that, it is no longer needed. So as we go through all these processes, we have to understand that. So we have to do everything counter to nature. Now, nature is out there and is functioning in its cycle, which seems to be pretty good generally. Makes sense as this kind of recycling of everything. Humankind is not that. You don't recycle again. You decay, you die, and that's it. You're not coming back or assisting the earth in any way. Certainly, human fertilizer is not very good. And what happens to all that? So the cycle is a finite cycle, which doesn't seem to help mankind much, or certainly not you individual. So understanding that is very important to understanding the bigger spiritual reality, that you're not turning the entropic nature of things can be considered, particularly in the human species, an evil. What is good about old age, weakness, fragility, general lack of consciousness on every level? What is the benefit of that? So people want to tell that people get older, they get wiser. Well, I'm not sure that's necessarily the case. You certainly have the opportunity based on the fact that a lot of information has come to you. Most older people are not wiser, they're stupid. They're living in their teenage years thinking that this is the way the world was 50 years ago. There's certainly not enough age, and wisdom does not necessarily go together. And I'm not sure wisdom connects with any physicality whatsoever. It's a state of consciousness, and you certainly need to have lots of years of knowledge gathering to come up with wisdom, just because you have to see if what you believe is true. I look back and I've changed a lot of my opinions, 100%, completely different than I did in my youth, and anyone who is on a consciousness path should. On the other hand, the basic principles of what works, the way of doing things, how society should function, has never changed, and they're still universal laws, as I like to call them. These always work, and they always will. Plain and simple. You change things because of the corruption of society that, yeah, the common sense may not work. Not because common sense is wrong, but because it doesn't work in society. So, as we go through this environment, we have to understand this nature of constant change and the evilness as it affects most things. And this includes physical things on a longer level as well. Houses don't last forever. Roofs have to be fixed. Plumbing has to be redone. Electricity has to be redone. And, it's not that long. If you have a 100-year-old house, it's probably falling apart. So there's an entropic nature of that. Of the physicality of it, which is undeniable, and you have to redo it. So, with the human structure, it's even worse, because you can't just redo it with a work team that comes in and fixes everything. You are decaying, and it's not whether you will die or not, it's just really how soon you're going to die over the common person. And so the whole idea is that, the older that people get, generally we have more and more cognizant diseases, Alzheimer's, you forget things, the whole thing of how your brain is working. So this is entropy. It's working there to not make you better. You're not breaking down into something that the earth can use like a rock into fertilizer. You're breaking down into I always like to say you start this world as a baby pooping in your pants, and you leave this world as a baby pooping in your pants. It's pretty sad that you go through this horrific cycle. So, it's entropy that is our enemy, and we have to figure out ways to stop this. But that's the basic principle behind everything. And as I said, as a subtle energy physicist, we look at the energy field. Well, let's restructure the energy field. We should be able to restructure your energy field of the way you were at 30 years old, which means your entire energy system should change back into that. So based on the theory of it, and it's not a theory. If we could reproduce that field with advanced technologies and project it onto you, you would actually go back physically, mentally, and every part of you back to when you were 30. And you'd have the health, the structure, and everything else that was at 30. The problem is you still would have built-in entropy in there. But that's another issue to a certain degree. You'd still be entropic at 30 instead of entropic or near death at 70 or 60. So the whole idea is everything's about that energy field. So we want to restructure the energy field at a immortal structure, at least at a structure where you were in better shape. So this is the nature of life. So when you send out radionic energies, and even when you're broadcasting through machines, the minute these connect to your particular target and you're sending a particular rate to them or a thought form or whatever you've sent to them, it is old and breaking down, which is the reason why you have to get into the repeat again. Every time you repeat doing something, you then are sending out new, less entropic energies. So putting somebody on a particular machine and leaving them on that particular rate for more than 30 days is negative effect. You're actually hitting them with entropic energies after 30 days that may be making the situation worse. So what you want to do is make sure you have the new rates every 30 days minimum, probably be better every 2 weeks or even weekly. But time is always a factor with people who are just too tired to do a lot of stuff. I don't know if it's time entirely, but who wants to constantly be involved in a particular procedure? There's better, more fun things to do. But you got to remember that once you are getting a rate for a particular problem, that it is entropic in nature and breaking down and not working as well. Now, there are those that stay longer. As I said, your cosmic code. This is your signature in the universe. So those stay the same structure, basically. Now, you could get new cosmic codes frequently as well, but the variances wouldn't be that great in terms of energetically. What's more important is the situation you're in, meaning whatever you're trying to create or connecting that energy to. Is that new energy or is it old energy? So these are the things that have to be. That's why when you use our energy cells, etc., we tell you to use them often. The key to making everything work is do it at high enthusiasm for short periods of time. Usually this is seconds. So you just want to feel good, and you don't have to feel good for days or weeks or months. You just have to feel good at that moment. Be positive, know it's going to work, and you want to then project whatever you're doing, whether it's a thought form or energy in general, for a short period of time. 2-3 seconds is enough. I mean, it's either going to work or it's not. But it doesn't depend on that one particular projection. The other key to that is what? Repeat, repeat, repeat. So that's why it's so important, because you're starting that new energy field, which again is now started at a non-entropic start, which is then going into the entropic breakdown the minute you release it. But if you've got something you've put out there days or weeks before, well, it's breaking down every second until it doesn't work at all. Now, how long does it work at all? Is that days? Is it hours? Well, we don't know. It depends on the situation. It's very, very dependent upon the actual reality of it all. So what is going on in that particular? Things are very changeable. One areas that are extremely changeable because of what you're trying to affect is the bioenergy of another person. So if that person particularly is, if it's emotionally based, like things like relationships, well, those energies are changing constantly. I mean, it's in a constant, fast change of and flux. Constant entropic motion at a very high level. Other areas are finances. It's not like relationships, but finances and money energy changes pretty rapidly. Illness energies. If you're really ill, again, it's not as fast as emotions and money, but if you use a rate on somebody, it's pretty much down to 50% efficiency rate within 24 hours. Relationships may be in a couple of hours. Money is within 6 to 12 hours that the energy is completely different. So these are the little tricks of the physics of manifestation and of the reality of the cosmos we live into. We're in a constant change of energy. The universe is full of different strange chemicals, gases, other things. And are they just sitting there and nothing's happening? No, they're constantly evolving, regardless of how fast or slow that is. So you have to look at that nature, and if you can change that nature, mold that nature, design that nature, direct it to where you want to, well, you've now taken over the control of the energies of the universe, which is why the subtle energy physics and the radionic machines that you use with it are basically God boxes, because you're a demigod to a certain extent. You're not affecting the universe as the universal God energy does. It affects everything. But you are affecting almost godlike powers of one particular area of it. And this can be boiled down to a particular person, a particular situation at that particular moment. All of these things break down into this little tiny reality that you live in and control. You're not controlling the universe, and you can't. Now, there is the God force, and it is there. You can use it, you can manipulate it, all to certain degrees and elements, depending on the situation and your training and your technologies, etc. But you don't make occultons. You rearrange them, you empower them, you structure them, you give them information of how to act. But you don't make them. Only God, whatever that is, makes occultons, and that is the mystery. Why are they there? Who controls it? Who made it? Well, that's the way it works. Those things are kind of unanswerable, and there's no answer to it, and there's no reason why to contemplate it. Who cares? Who cares who controls this reality? Who's involved with it? How do we deal with it and mold it in our own lives so we can really do more important work? If nothing else, in work that is more interesting, that is more fun, all the things that go with the higher states of being instead of the survival aspect. And we are still there. Most of this world is in survival mode. We're all stressed out having to survive and figure out how to take care of ourselves in the next few days, weeks, and some even hours. This has to stop if we expect people to get out of the survival mode and into the consciousness mode and doing things for the greater good in the higher levels. So all of that is what this is all about. But if you work on the physical level only, after all, that's what physics means. They want to see the physicalness of it. You're missing the point. To think that informational energetic fields are not physical because you can't see them, touch them, is nonsense. We know they work by using technologies that use these fields, and as such, we prove the reality of it. Now, that's what, of course, physicists have done today. People have never seen the boson God particle, as they call it. They have never found that. What the? You're wrong. They said that. No, they didn't say that. They've seen what they consider the aftermath of this manifestation particle. Meaning they've seen the debris from it when they smash it together. They've seen the fact that if there's an old saying, if you see lots of horse dung, well, there probably is a horse, right? Well, that's right. I guess you can extrapolate onto that understanding that if there's horse dung, somebody had to make it, and a horse had to make it because, after all, it's horse dung. So that's the reality of it. That's exactly what they've seen with the Higgs boson, which they claim they have found. Now, they haven't found that. They've never seen it. They have no idea what it is because it's an informational energetic field, and they don't even have a concept of it. What they do have is the poo left from it. Simple as that. They have something that they think relates to that. Really, at least with horse dung, we know it's horse dung, and we know that there's a horse. What they are thinking is that this leftover garbage we've found really is the creation energy we've been seeking. Oh, what an egotistical jump that is. You don't know what it is, so you just, yeah, that's what we're looking for. Yeah. Right, buddy? Yeah, that's right. We spent $10 billion on this little spinner machine here. The collider, bang stuff together. Well, we better get some results. We haven't had much lately. So the whole idea is this is exactly what you're talking about in the entropic nature, but people aren't explained of what this bogus science is all about, that it's really just a bunch of ifs, ands, and buts. And, of course, let's not make up, they used to use Greek terms to describe things. Now they're using the Higgs boson. Well, isn't that two guys' names? I don't know if boson's a guy's name. If it is, I feel sorry for him. But boso, the boson theory, and Higgies, they're named after men. And, while I do agree that mankind should be praised much more than we should have on every street corner, there should be temples to mankind where we go in there and see statues and have little information on the great men who have made things happen instead of the comic book gods we have now. I'm very in favor of that, but I don't think they should be given credit for an entire area of technology. And I don't think we should name something a telescope, which was not invented by that person it's named after, either. It should be a telescope. So I believe, Galileo Galileo was the one who invented the telescope, or someone like that. But regardless of that, that's a technology And certainly there should be given credit there, but we should name things generally and not specifically to honor one person. What an egotistical group these scientists are, patting each other on the back, giving technologies to psychotic maniacs who destroy the earth, and then thinking they're wonderful. Now they want to go into philosophy. God help us. So the whole idea, whoever God is, we have the God box, though. So the whole idea is that the reality to all these things is the ultimate reality that mankind needs to look at, and that is going from the energetic to the physical and taking all that. So that's how it all works. It's not so as long as you keep looking for physical things, you won't understand. Now, if you measure the energy fields that are around something, you'll see how they fluctuate. And if you can stop that fluctuation or control that fluctuation to where you want it to go, then you control all matter, and that's it. And that can include aging and anything connected with it, period. There is nothing that the ultimate technology of the God boxes cannot do. But don't think the God boxes as you know they are today is the real technology. Even the ones that I offer, this is preschool, baby. And we've had 120 years of preschool radionics. Those things are all dead, including the garbage that has been produced, particularly in the last 10 to 15 years, who have toxified this energy with their belief systems and their horrible energies. These are just primitive baby caveman tools. We're hitting rocks together right now to make fire. That's not the technology of the future. The technology of the future is way beyond these primitive basic tools we have now, and you will see it coming into fruition in the next 2 to 5 years as I produce all these things and bring them up to the level. Now, in the past, we had some pretty advanced tools, fiber optics, radionics, etc., and we're even going past that. These tools were, of course, stopped by the powers out there who don't want this kind of technology to be brought to the public. But we've even surpassed that into much higher level empowerments. And what we produce right now is still basic, kick-ass, hardcore technology that everybody needs. But this is far from the super advanced technologies that are coming out very soon. And no one has any idea of how to produce these technologies except myself. And this is a very advanced subtle energy physics engineering, occult engineering, that only I know about. And this has not been released in any full extent as of yet. But it is all coming, and people will see what's in these boxes. You will know basically how they work. And of course, there's going to be some basic information that we have to keep certain things at a certain level of our exclusive technology. But the basic understanding out there will be there. So let's hope that everyone understands this entropic nature of everything, that we have to measure energy fields, not the physical substance. By the time the physical substance and reality changes, well, it's too late. You've already changed that energy field. We want to maintain an energy field, possibly strengthen it so it doesn't go entropic, so it kind of lives forever, whatever that may be. Hopefully this is clear. This is another lesson in subtle energy physics, giving you the law of entropy. Until next time.